The people of Utah and Arizona will speak tonight. Donald Trump will be closer to the number of delegates he needs to be the Republican presidential nominee. Ted Cruz will remain on his heels. John Kasich, in the minds of many, is doing more damage than a wrecking ball. And why can't Hillary Clinton shake Bernie Sanders already? Come on! If it's Tuesday, it must be yet another primary night, another chance for wonderfully canned speeches, and of course the left and right duel between the experts here on the political animal. Welcome back from the left, senior political editor at Forbes magazine, co-host of Steele and Ungar on Sirius XM POTUS 124 every weekday evening, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Yes, I have it on a dial in my car. Rick Ungar. And from the right, former head of FEMA, now verbally bouncing off the Rocky Mountains from 6:30 KHOW in Denver, Colorado, weekdays from 4 to 7 local time. And yes, I have it on an app at home. Michael Brown. Got to make sure you cover all the bases here. There you go.
I don't know how you have time to go to work.
I don't, actually. I have no life, Rick. Thanks so much for noting. None of us do here. We're going to get serious in a couple of minutes about what's going on around the world. But right now, let's go ahead and talk to what's happening in politics here. All right, Mr. Brown, I come to you first on this one. In Politico today, how Trump wins the West even if he loses, pointing out that Ted Cruz, John Kasich working at cross purposes, and as long as John Kasich stays in the race, many believe, he will ensure that Donald Trump wins the Republican nomination. You go for that?
I do. Unfortunately, I do go for that. I took a long weekend last weekend, and I went to, hypothetically speaking, I went to a Buddhist camp, and I got very zen, and I realized that Donald Trump may very well get 1,237 delegates, and I have increase the amount of dosage of drugs that I take, and all is well with the world. I don't know what to say.
We do need to point out now, as a matter of course, that they're going to start selling marijuana brownies at Coors Field during Rockies games this year. So I think we know exactly. We know where some people are going to be spending time in Colorado. Careful of that thumbs up there, Mr. Ungar. We'll get to that eventually. All right, Rick. Well, let me come to you then on this. Look, the way things are going right here. Let's stay on the right for just a moment here. Donald Trump will probably take a beating in Utah. That's a given. But Arizona seems tailor-made for him. It's still, and not only that, what's happening the last couple of days, the last 24 hours, people are going, he remains the only guy that can actually get it done. They got to stop fighting here, Rick. Look, no matter how many times we say it, don't vote for him, he's a bad guy, the people who follow Donald Trump will stay with him no matter what. The people who don't like him won't vote for him no matter what. Isn't this cast pretty much set?
Yeah, probably. I mean, look, you're going to get a test tonight of the Kasich effect in Utah. If Ted Cruz comes up short of that 50%, that means he does not get all the delegates. It's a winner-take-all if you cross the 50% line. Kasich's going to get a lot of the blame for that, and that's going to be interesting as it moves forward.
Let us then stay on the left. Bill Clinton, campaigning for his wife, the former Secretary of State, did seem to throw the president and the job he's done the past 2 terms right under the wheels of that bus, and here's what he said.
There may be many reasons that you don't want to support her, but if you believe we can all rise together, if you believe we finally come to the point where we can put the awful legacy of the last 8 years behind us and the 7 years before that when we were practicing trickle-down economics and no regulation in Washington, which is what caused the crash, then you should vote for her.
Hey, Rick, has Bill Clinton now gone for broke here? I mean, he's not even worried about 4 years now. Now it's 15 years he's going back at this point. And to be quite honest, people I'm talking to on the campaign trail don't think that he's doing one world of good for Hillary.
Well, I actually agree with that. I think there's something up with him. I don't know what's going on, but he's not the same Bill Clinton. That said, no, I don't think he really did intend to make that crack about the past 8 years. I think he was talking about Republican obstructionism. But hey, when you're that careless in how you say things, you're giving your opposition a world of help.
Is it not? Hey, there's a good segue, Mike, because does it not, that word careless that Rick used, that's what both sides have to be guilty of this year. When it comes down to the fight between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, sides have been careless about how they go at each other. On the Republican side, we have been awash in carelessness from the GOP, the RNC, and everybody else there. Doesn't that just go to show that, indeed, people just weren't ready for this campaign cycle? I mean, going back to last year, they thought it was all set in the bag.
They weren't ready for it. And I think, to Rick's point, I'm not sure what's going on with former President Clinton, but I've always believed that if you listen closely, liberals at times will tell you the truth about what they really believe. And we know that Bill Clinton's never liked Barack Obama. And I think what he said there whether it was a slip of the tongue or not, psychologically, at least to me, it told me what he really thinks about the Obama administration. Whether it was careless or not, I don't know. But nonetheless, he threw him under the bus.
All right, well, the bus is still rolling.
It could, but considering how much Hillary has tied herself to Obama,
Sure.
It just seems like an odd thing to do.
Look, let's be honest here.
Right,
I mean, the way Hillary Clinton has run this campaign, sometimes you think she is the tire on the bus, not just tied to the tire, okay? Real briefly
harsh,
here,
man.
Donald Trump released, hey, you got to be honest here. Let it flow. Donald Trump released his foreign policy team. Real quick, 15 seconds to you, Mike. What'd you think of this group?
I was impressed. I thought it was good. At least it's not his left and right frontal lobes. It's somebody else outside his own brain. So I think that alone was a good sign that he recognized he cannot go out again and say, my foreign policy team is my brain. So, hey, we're making some progress.
20 seconds to you, Rick. What'd you think of the announcement and the individuals involved?
It was strange, to be honest. I mean, I know a couple of them, and it just seemed like strange people to put on in that particular group. I don't know. I guess it's not terrible. It just was odd. You know, I look at Ted Cruz's and it scares the heck out of me. So I guess I like Trump's better.
I was waiting for that one. All right, guys, stay frosty in your chairs. We're going to take a break. Right back to you on the twin talk points of the day, the president in Cuba and that attack in Brussels. Let's remind everybody, we talked about Utah and Arizona going at it tonight. This is the place to be for honest, straightforward commentary on what you will be talking about tomorrow. America Votes begins tonight. Live coverage of Arizona and Utah starting at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and it's only right here on Newsmax. Stay with us. Part 2 of the political animal next on the Hardline.
Many suggested that I come here and ask the people of Cuba to tear something down. But I'm appealing to the young people of Cuba who will lift something up, build something new. El futuro de Cuba tiene que estar en las manos del pueblo cubano. And to President Castro, you do not need to fear a threat from the United States. And given your commitment to Cuba's sovereignty and self-determination, I am also confident that you need not fear the different voices of the Cuban people and their capacity to speak and assemble and vote for their leaders.
President Obama has made his ballyhoo trip to Cuba, despite the fact he said last year there would be no such trip unless the dictator family there did something about their daily violations of human rights. And as the current chief executive, he needs to lead in the world war that has shocked another nation and left more bodies in the streets. The political animal turns there. Let's welcome back Forbes senior political editor Rick Ungar and someone who knows about emergency response as the former head of FEMA, Michael Brown. All right, Rick, let's go ahead and get to you. The president is in Cuba. Let's start here from a premise. I don't think there's a logical individual who would say that, yes, the blockade did not work. It has hurt the Cuban people terribly. However, standing there, a lot of the things that he has said, he has got a man sitting next to him who still has political prisoners in jail. He still has a country that is vastly underrated, I think, in human rights. Was this actually a good thing for the president to do right now?
I really think it was. I mean, the comparison that I've been drawing was Richard Nixon going to China. Look, I mean, obviously that's on a much grander scale. But, you know, you've got to start somewhere. As you said, what we've done for the past 50 plus years didn't really work. What I particularly liked, though, and I got to tell you, I thought his speech today was awesome. He reached out to the Cuban people. He wasn't afraid to look at Raul Castro and say, you know what, you got to let them vote. You got to let them pick their government. You got to let them determine their own futures. I was really taken with the speech today. I hope others will, although I'm sure there'll be criticism.
Well, Michael, let's get to that, too, because even in the speech itself, there are those who are going to say only a certain few heard it. The people of Cuba will not hear it. And they're going to say that no matter what you say to Raul Castro, he's going to stay in power and continue to hammer these people under his thumb until the day he dies and probably 20 years after that. So is it really making a difference is the big point here?
It's not making any difference at all. And to Rick's point, I am going to criticize the speech because when he look, the Cuban people are incredibly talented people, but to say that they're talented because they can fix old cars ignores the reason why they have to fix old cars, which is because of communism. And I think this unwillingness to address the elephant in the room, which is communism, and the horrible violence set upon the ladies in white, the dissidents, and everybody else, I think I think the speech was in poor taste. It may have been grandiose. It may have been typical Obama, but it's like, address the elephant in the room and don't ignore the fact that you have a repressive regime that causes these people to have to go out and fix old cars. I thought it was wrong.
All right, I tell you what, Rick,
Michael,
20 seconds
all,
to you, Rick, because there is, you say, the elephant in the room that he addressed. Go ahead, 20 seconds.
It's not necessarily old cars because of communism. It's old cars because we can't send cars in there. This is the blockade, number one. Number two, he did address it.
I have to interject something. The Castro boys have access to anything from Russia, from Venezuela, from any other communist country. It's communism. That's the problem.
Would you agree with that, Rick?
I understand Michael's point. I do. I don't think it's as simple as that. I think that what we have done have kept the Cuban people from advancing in their economy. Look, there are signs of it coming. I don't disagree. It is truly a repressive government, but the Castro brothers can't live forever. So we're either going to get started in helping the Cuban people, or we're going to continue a policy that just has had no value to anybody whatsoever.
And the only hope is that the next person who picks up after the Castros are dead won't be any worse. I only got 60 seconds left here. Rick, let me get your take first of all.
They get to vote for him.
The Brussels terror attacks. Donald Trump says, I would close up our borders. People are looking at some sort of reaction from the United States. Real quick, Rick, where do we need to go from here?
We need to do a better job of what we haven't done so far, which is join with other countries in the world, certainly Europe now, to come up with an effective strategy to go after and get these terrorists, ISIS, anybody. I have been very critical of the Obama administration on the way that's been being done. The idea, though, of closing our borders, everybody from Michael Hayden to whoever will tell you this is not going to help. We don't get this done without the assistance of moderate Muslims.
20 seconds to you, Michael. What's our response?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to secure the borders, not close the borders. And I agree with Rick 100%.
That's fair.
Our foreign policy is a disaster, and we're doing absolutely nothing to cut the head off this snake.
And the biggest problem is our foreign policy is a disaster, and it hasn't really improved any, because here we have attacks, and people say that they are already on our shores. Again, some would say that's nothing more than fear-mongering at this point. But look, forearmed is forewarned sometimes. I think sometimes we got to just take it and be ready for whatever comes our way. What comes our way at the moment is Michael Brown's heading up to Coors Field right now to sit and wait for opening day. Michael Brown, 630 KHOW in Denver. Rick Ungar, Sirius XM POTUS 124. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. From the ground in Utah and Arizona, what these states will mean tonight for the POTUS candidates. It's next on The Hardline.